Hey everyone, today we're going to be going over and showing you how to install the CURT Front Mount Trailer Hitch Receiver here on our 2014 Ford F-350. So this is what our trailer hitch is going to look like installed. And as you can see, the only thing that's actually going to be visible from outside the vehicle is the receiver tube opening. The cross tube is going to be pretty much hidden behind this little deflector here. Now there are a couple different things about this hitch that I really like. It sets it apart from some of the other options. Is number one, we can actually adjust the position of the receiver tube. So right now we have it installed in the rise position, and basically that's going to give us the most ground clearance possible. We are going to have to do a little bit more cutting because we're going to be in the center sort of this deflector here. But we can also install it in the drop position. Say you have a snowplow, you probably need your trailer hitch to be a little bit closer to the ground. So in which case we can actually install this, it actually gets flipped, so it sits about down here in this area. But if you're using it for like a bike rack, a cargo basket, or like a winch mounting, chances are you're going to want to install it in the rise position that we have it in here. So a couple figures we have for you. Number one, say we're going to be using this to mount a winch. We need to make sure that we do not exceed the 9,000 pound line pull rating of the front mount hitch. Now, say we're using this to help us maneuver a trailer, or we have a bike rack cargo carrier. The latter two you probably won't have an issue with at all, but we do have to abide by the 500 pound tongue weight rating. So therefore, we need to make sure that our trailer, the tongue weight on our trailer, does not exceed that rating if that's what we're using it for. So in regards to the hitch pin, our trailer hitch here, it doesn't stick out super far because really it makes it a little bit harder to use each time, but it just looks a little bit better overall. We don't have to worry about hitting our shins on it when we're walking by. And again, it just makes for a little bit more of a seamless look. However, because of that, our hitch pin hole is going to be behind this deflector here, but it's still not too bad to use it. Just take our hitch pin here, just come underneath and insert it like so. We still have quite a bit of room here to install our pin from either side here. So in regards to installation, this one is pretty simple. The only modification we need to make to our vehicle is trimming a small piece out of our deflector here. But aside from that, everything's going to be bolt on. So let's go ahead and walk you guys through that install now. So the first step of our installation, we're going to come underneath the front of our truck here. We're going to have two brackets, one on either side of the frame that we need to remove. So these are what the brackets are going to look like. I went ahead and used some spray lubricant on the threads up here to make things a little bit easier. But you're going to need an 18mm socket. There's going to be two nuts on this side and two nuts on the other side, and it'll be the same thing on the other side of the vehicle. So once we have all of our nuts out, we can go ahead, just push our bolts back into the frame here, and then our bracket should fall right out. Now we can come to the front side here and remove our two nuts attached to the plate. And we're just going to simply repeat this same process on the other side. So now once we have our plates removed, we're going to come to the outside of either side of our frame here. I'm going to point out the 4 attachment points for the side plates of our hitch. We're going to be reusing the 2 holes that we just removed the brackets from earlier. We're also going to be using this oblong hole here and this oblong hole here. So what we need to start by doing is we need to take our Fishwire, our spacer block, and our carriage bolt. We actually need to feed that through these 2 holes here. So in order to do that, I'm going to start with the furthest one. I'm going to take the coiled end of our Fishwire. I'm going to fish that all the way down. I'm going to try to get it to come out underneath just like that. Then what I'm going to do is place the spacer block over the coiled end. Make sure we don't lose the other end of our Fishwire. And then I'm going to thread on a carriage bolt. Because then what we can do is, I'm going to grab the other end of our Fishwire. I'm going to push the spacer block up into the frame along with that carriage bolt. And then we should be able to pull that out our hole here just like that. Now I'll repeat the same process on this other bolt hole here. So now that we have our 2 carriage bolts in place, we're going to reinstall this factory bolt spacer here, whatever you want to call it. It's pretty easy to do that. Just take the coiled end of our Fishwire, feed it down through the frame here, and then we can attach it to the side that we ran the hole through. This one's going to be a little bit more challenging since we have to feed both sides through, but it's definitely still doable. And now we'll just repeat that same process on the other side. So now that we have all of our hardware inside the frame here, we can take one of our side plates here, doesn't matter which one. We can go ahead and set this into position. We're going to first place all of our wires through our holes here. Then we should be able to lift it onto position. So now we're going to take the flange nuts in our kit here. We're actually going to have one bolt open here that I don't have a Fishwire on. So that's the one we're going to start with. That's going to help hold that block into place, because then we can go ahead and unthread our Fishwire here. And I'll simply just thread on another one of our new flange nuts. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pretty much just repeat the same process for our other two bolt holes here. However, we want to be careful that we don't push the carriage bolts back into the frame. A good way to do this is if we actually just grab a hold of the side plate here and pull down, that'll pin the bolt and stop it from going back into the frame there. So again, I'm just going to put some pressure downward here on this plate. Unthread the Fishwire and thread on our flange nut, just like that. So now we'll come back with a 19mm socket. We'll just go ahead down and snug all of our bolts. So once we get all of those nuts snugged down, we'll go ahead and just repeat this same process on the other side. So the next part of our installation here is going to vary a bit depending if we install our trailer hitch in the rise position or the drop position. So the drop position essentially means our receiver tube is going to be a little bit lower to the ground, whereas the rise position means it's going to be up a little bit higher. Now for this particular application, we're going to be showing you how to install it in the rise position. The really only difference between the two installations is the amount of cutting we have to do to this deflector here. So to give you guys a little bit of a tip here, what we can do is we're actually going to go ahead and set our trailer hitch up into position and secure it using these rear two most holes here. So we just went ahead and placed our carriage bolts in there. And again, we can do this whether we're installing it in the rise or the drop position. So the reason we went ahead and installed those carriage bolts is we can actually come on the back side of a bumper now. I'm going to take a paint marker. I'm essentially just going to trace an outline here in this plastic deflector. It's going to give us a little outline of our skid shield here and let us know how much we need to trim. So it's not going to be perfect, but it is going to give us a good outline to help us when we're making our cuts. So that's about how much we're going to need to take out. I am going to cut out a little bit bigger than this just to give us a little bit more room to work. We're obviously going to have this collar around the receiver tube. So now we can actually go ahead and remove the trailer hitch here so we can make the cuts to our deflector. We're going to be using a Dremel tool to remove this material. So now that we have our cutout made, we can just take either a file, a piece of sandpaper, or even a razor blade. We're just going to clean up our cutout a little bit here. So now with an extra set of hands, we can go ahead and set our trailer hitch up into position. So now that we have everything in place, we're going to go ahead and snug down our hardware here. So now we'll take our torque wrench here, we'll torque down all of our fasteners to the specifications and our instructions. So once we have everything torqued down, that'll do it today for our look at installation. of the CURT front mount trailer hitch receiver here on our 2014 Ford F-350.